命が一つ。久しぶりだな、サスケ。
Hey, I'm Laureen, and my mom always made me feel like I was a big disappointment. She wanted me to be a straight A student, but no matter how hard I studied, I rarely even got a B-. My worst subject was math. It didn't make any sense to me, and my math teacher, Mrs. Blacksmith, didn't even try to help me figure it out. Instead, she'd make fun of me for being stupid. If I asked a question, she would say things like, "Oh wow, Laureen doesn't get it again. Okay, let's all go extra slow for Laureen. 1 + 1 is 2. You understand it now, Laureen? Or do you want to waste more of our time?" I don't know why she hated me. I mean, I never disturbed her classes, unlike some of my classmates, because I'm rather quite shy. I guess she thought that I was the perfect victim because I wouldn't stand up for myself, but she was wrong about that. At first, I tried to tell my mom about how Mrs. Blacksmith was picking on me, but my mom said I simply should stop asking stupid questions so I wouldn't annoy my teachers anymore. But one day, Mrs. Blacksmith took it too far. When we got a class photo done, she showed it to the whole class and said, "Laureen, why can't you smile nicely like everyone else? You ruined the whole photo. I can't hang it on the wall with you looking stupid like that." I was close to tears and everyone else was giggling. That's when I decided to tape every class I had with her, so I'd have evidence of how she treated me. I started to ask stupid questions on purpose all the time, like, "What's the difference between a triangle and equator again?" And every time I asked her to explain something, she made fun of me. I recorded her for 6 months, until I had over 50 recordings of her insulting and embarrassing me. I figured I had more than enough evidence to prove my teacher had been picking on me. So I went to the principal and played him a compilation of Mrs. Blacksmith's worst insults. He looked shocked, but all he said was to come back to his office tomorrow before school to discuss the matter with Mrs. Blacksmith. When I went home, I played my dad the recording and he went nuts, saying, "No one treats my daughter like that." And my dad knows a lot of policemen in our small town, so he asked one of his buddies to support me during the meeting. When I arrived with my parents and a policeman at the principal's office, the principal, Mrs. Blacksmith, and 3 other men from the school authority were already waiting for us. I was so glad I had a policeman to back me up, especially since Mrs. Blacksmith said she was happy we were there to discuss me because I was such a problem student. But then the principal asked me to play the recording. I still remember how Mrs. Blacksmith's expression went from confident to, "I am screwed." Afterwards, the principal turned to Mrs. Blacksmith and asked, "Do you want to say something?" Her face went bright red. She knew there was no excuse for what she'd done. All she said to me was, "I'm sorry for mistreating you, Laureen. It won't happen again." The principal said, "You're right, it won't happen again, because you are fired." Mrs. Blacksmith started crying, but didn't say anything. She knew there was nothing she could do. But it got even better. My dad's policeman friend told her she was under arrest for bullying. It turns out that making fun of someone is a serious offense, even though I'm not sure it was necessary to put her in handcuffs and to escort her outside. However, on her way out of the office, our eyes met for a quick moment, and I couldn't help but smile. Mrs. Blacksmith never came back to our school, and it wasn't long before word spread about what I'd done. It turned out I wasn't the only one she'd been picking on. Suddenly, all kinds of people were coming up to me to thank me for getting rid of her. I even made some friends because of it. If that wasn't crazy enough, a few years later, a friend of mine told me Mrs. Blacksmith was now a private tutor. I guess she's not allowed to teach in public school anymore. I also know that tutors make less money than teachers do, so she got what she deserved. Even though I hope she treats her students better now than she treated me. If you should ever have a teacher that picks on you, make sure to record everything they say, and make sure to tell your parents and your principal about it. Because sometimes you have to take things into your own hands. Thank you for listening to my story, and please subscribe to this channel.
Hey, I'm Aideen, and last year, something terrible happened to me. My family and I went on vacation to Egypt, where we took a look at the pyramids, the Sphinx, and lots of sand. Everything was good until my psychopath brother turned my vacation into a nightmare. First, I caught him stealing sunglasses from a small shop. I told him to put them back, but he started laughing and said, "Or what?" I responded, "Or I will call the police." And he said, "I don't care. I will just tell them that you have stolen the sunglasses." That's when he threw the sunglasses into my bag. Of course, I freaked out and immediately put them back on the rack. But my brother was laughing. For him, everything was just a joke. I guess that's also why he had a long criminal record. One time, he convinced an old lady to give him $5,000 so he could afford his cancer treatment. But of course, my brother never had cancer. He was just scamming an old lady. That's why I tried to ignore my brother for the rest of our vacation. But when we took a rest inside our hotel lobby, a man came up to my dad. He pointed at me and said, "Is this your daughter?" My dad said, yeah? And the man said, "She is very beautiful, and I want to ask if she is interested in getting married." Of course, my dad responded, "No, she's not. Please leave us alone." And the man walked away again. I said, "This was so scary," and my dad agreed. However, my brother was suddenly missing until he knocked at my door the next morning. He said, "Hey, Dad wants to show us something." I said, "Okay," and followed him. We left our hotel and walked through many long and narrow streets. I asked my brother, "Are you sure Dad walked in here?" But my brother kept quiet until we arrived at a house. We went inside and there was one familiar-looking man. My brother said, "Do you remember him from yesterday? He paid me $2,000 for you, and now you're going to marry his son." That's when my brother literally started running away. Meanwhile, I was shocked and screamed, "No, no, no, I don't want this." And then I started running away too, but the man ran after me screaming, "I've paid for you, I've paid for you." Well, I got back to my hotel safely, but the man had followed me and he was seriously angry. Luckily, my dad came into the hotel lobby and asked, "What is going on?" The man said, "I've paid $2,000 to marry your daughter to my son." And I screamed, "My brother sold me! My brother has sold me for $2,000 to this man." My dad said, Okay, no problem." Then he got $3,000 from an ATM and gave it to the man. He seemed happy with it and simply left again. 4 hours later, my brother came back to our hotel and he was like, "Oh my God, you won't believe what happened. This crazy man just gave me $2,000 for no reason." And then my brother started laughing like crazy. Again, this whole incident was nothing but a joke to him. I mean, what kind of human would try to sell his own sister? Oh yeah, a sick psychopath who doesn't care about anyone but himself. Well, at least my dad promised me to cut my brother out of his will, which means that I will get my dad's house once he passes away.
Hey, I'm Elizabeth, and I grew up in a very dangerous neighborhood. To make things worse, my dad left my mom when I was just a baby, so we had no one to protect us. At age 13, I started to notice guys staring at me when I walked past them. I told my mom about it, and she said I was too pretty for my own good. Since then, she made me wear ugly clothes which covered my body and face so that guys would be less interested in me. She also told me horror stories about what happened to girls who went out at night and what guys would do to them. It made me terrified to go anywhere, and to this day, I've never been to a single party or event after 5 p.m. You might think that being pretty made me one of the popular girls in school, but that wasn't the case. Most girls didn't like me. They said I was arrogant and stuck up, and there was one time when my mom allowed me to wear tight jeans, and all the girls inside my class shamed me and called me a slut. I did have one good friend though. Her name was Marie, and she never seemed to care what other people thought of her. She was really into comic books and stuff, even though the other kids said it was dumb. Anyways, one day I went to the bathroom and caught Taya, Rachel, and some other popular girls writing some really nasty things about Marie in lipstick on the walls. I told them they were jerks and went to clean it off, but they all circled around me saying things like, "Oh, Miss Pretty thinks she's better than us. Better watch your back, you won't be pretty forever." I was seriously scared, but I would have never guessed what they did next. The following day, they wrote on the walls again, this time calling one of our teachers ugly. Then they went to the principal, Mr. Clayton, and told him they'd seen me writing the graffiti onto the bathroom walls. Next, I got called into Mr. Clayton's office. I tried to tell him I didn't do it. I mean, I didn't even own a lipstick. But when he searched my bag and found the lipstick, I knew the other girls had put it in my bag. Of course, I tried to explain to him I'd been set up, but he didn't believe me and said I needed to learn that just because I was pretty didn't mean I could call other people ugly and do whatever I wanted. Afterwards, he suspended me for 1 whole week from school. I was furious because I was being punished even though I'd only tried to defend my best friend. I don't want to complain though. I know a lot of people have much bigger problems to deal with, and most of the time, being pretty makes your life easier. Recently though, I had another problem. I'm working in sales and I have a female boss. Even though I made the most sales in my department, I was the only one who didn't get a bonus. When I asked my boss why, she told me I had a bad attitude and needed to be more of a team player. I had no idea what she was talking about, but I was suspecting that she was actually just jealous of my looks. That's why I went to her boss, Mr. Jones. I explained to him that I didn't get a bonus and that I thought it wasn't fair. He agreed and overruled my boss's decision. But now, I wish I hadn't said anything, because since he talked to my boss about me, she's been making my life hell. Because last week I had to work overtime every single day. That's why I'm already looking for a new job. And yesterday, I had my first interview, and I was lucky because the interviewer was a guy, and he seemed to like me. So maybe my looks will actually help me get a new job. Anyways, thank you for listening to my story, and please subscribe to this channel for daily animated stories.